All right, so in light of the recent 60th birthday celebration of Michael Joseph Jackson, me and him both share the same birthday of August 29th. Obviously, I'm not 60. But in any case, a lot of fans on my live streams, as well as I think I did a video about Michael Jackson's Thriller being beaten out by the Eagles and stuff like that. Whenever I'm doing live streams, those are pretty much just off the cuff, unscripted. We could talk about anything. A lot of people have been asking me to do my favorite, like, what are your favorite Michael Jackson songs? What's your favorite Michael album? Oh, you like Power Rangers too? What are your favorite seasons? Ooh, Pokemon. Who are your favorite Pokemon? And the list goes on because we talk about a lot of stuff. So be on the lookout for those videos soon. But in this video, I want to talk about what is my favorite Michael Jackson album, and that there's a lot that goes into that decision. And I don't mean to rant on before I give my official answer, but when I think of my favorite album, I have to think about what album has the most songs that I'll listen to. What album will I not skip all the way through? It's like, the first 4 tracks are whack. Let me get to the good stuff. And it is definitely a tough call. And the thing is, a lot of these channels out here, I think like History in the Mix and Prince's Friend are 2 channels that come to mind. History in the Mix being a Michael Jackson focused channel, Prince's Friend obviously being a Prince focused channel, but the guy does a lot of great reviews on Prince albums, The Revolution, New Power Generation, Morris Day and the Time. He does Michael Jackson album reviews as well. And for me, I'm a documentary junkie. So I love learning the behind the scenes, like documentaries, behind the scenes specials. So sometimes I don't really appreciate a song until I learn the backstory behind it, and that gives me new respect. Because to be honest, I've always kind of been the person that listens to the singles, not necessarily the entire albums. And sometimes there are hidden, underrated gems amidst all the, the top selling songs. Like, for example, Thriller. Human Nature to me is one of my favorite cuts off the album, but it's not really one of the more popular Michael songs. One of my favorites, but not one of the ones that, people mention. Most people will just off the bat, ooh, Billie Jean, Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, Smooth Criminal, Man in the Mirror, The Way You Make Me Feel, Black or White. Human Nature is sometimes in the top 10 in terms of what people will spit out of their mouths, but not really what they will say off the bat. So not to mention on top of the behind the scenes stuff in terms of why stuff was written. For example, the Spike Lee documentaries like the Off the Wall special and Bad 25. Hey, there are a lot of tracks off of those albums that I didn't really appreciate until I learned the backstory. To be honest, Off the Wall is probably one of my least favorite albums. Again, the documentary itself was fantastic. I learned a lot about Michael from it. To me, Off the Wall was kind of like his first transition from the Jacksons. Sure, he did like Ben and a few other solo albums as part of the Jackson 5 and then later on the Jacksons. But at the same time, I feel like Off the Wall was his first official step away into a solo artist. Sure, he didn't fully step away from the Jacksons until post Thriller, post their Victory album / tour. And Bad could be officially counted as the first full-length Michael, hey, I'm no longer with the Jacksons, I'm my own brother kind of situation. But Off the Wall to me, I think Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, Rock With You, She's Out of My Life, to me those are like the Don't Stop and Rock With You are my 2 go-to songs on the album. She's Out of My Life is kind of like the Human Nature of the Off the Wall album. So Off the Wall isn't my favorite, but it does have some gems on it. Now, Thriller, and I actually saw this great interview on Vlad TV. That's a big YouTube channel I didn't even know about until recently. Great interviews on there. And I think that, what's his name? Lord Jamar and Vlad were in a discussion or debate about, Thriller not being the best Michael album because Off the Wall was better than Thriller because of the fact that was Michael when, he was black. Now, not really the skin tone thing. I'm talking about, in terms of the music. Thriller was more of a commercial album in terms of it didn't have that same kind of soul that Off the Wall did. I actually see both parties and where they're coming from because Thriller definitely had more commercial success in terms of sounding more of a crossover album rather than Off the Wall. And I do agree with that. But at the same time, there are definitely more songs off the Thriller album that I love to listen to and jam to than Off the Wall. But another consideration when I talk about my favorite Michael album is, you know, aside from the songs themselves, how many I skip, which ones I love, learning more about the backstory behind the songs, like even looking at the Off the Wall documentary, like Get on the Floor and Girlfriend. I didn't really like the songs more after watching the documentary. I still skip over them. But with the music videos, that's what really makes a song even more relevant in my mind, because of the fact that when the song comes on, you can instantly relate. You can like play the video in your head. Thriller, I mean, enough said. I mean, you got Thriller. And when I talk about favorite album, I don't count the music video version, because technically I prefer the music video cut of Thriller compared to the album cut, because the album cuts doesn't really have the same flow. There are parts that are cut together differently than the video. But I mean, off the top of my head, just Billie Jean, Beat It, Wanna Be Starting Something, Human Nature, The Girl Is Mine. I mean, the list goes on. And if you ask me, I feel like the contender for the best Michael album, at least in my mind, is easily between Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad. And if I'm not mistaken, Bad had more #1 hits than Thriller. I think it had 7, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that. But at the same time, I think that was the Michael album with the most, because it had records that Thriller didn't, in terms of it broke certain records that Thriller did not, even though it wasn't as big of a commercial success. To me personally, Dangerous has one of my favorite album covers of all time. Recently online, I found an interview with Teddy Riley. This was a recent interview, and he talked about that. You know, he was part of the album, and he was brought into the marketing team in terms of picking the cover, and he was the one that did that, and that gave me even more respect for the man, because I just love that cover so much, because every time I look at it, there's always something to pick out of it. And even though I think that was like the first album after his death, the Michael album. Was it called Forever Michael, or was it just titled Michael? Trash album, because of course recently we found out that 3 of the songs weren't sung by Michael but an impersonator. That probably has my second favorite Michael album cover, because it was just so much together. I think that Dangerous, I like that album cover more. The Michael album felt a bit congested, but I just like looking at it because there's always something on the cover that I didn't notice the first time. But Dangerous, to me, I mean, it's the first Michael album away from Quincy Jones. It doesn't really do it for me. There are some songs on there I love, like Black or White, obviously, Remember the Time. What's that song from the Free Willy movie? Will You Be There? I think Heal the World was on that one as well. But I think that Dangerous came out in the midst of the child allegations and whatnot, so that was kind of like a pothole in the road for the success of the album. Not to say it didn't do extremely well, but at the same time, you know, Michael had to go through a lot of stuff. But after that, I didn't really feel like I connected with a lot of his later albums, like what was it, the Blood on the Dance Floor album, the Ghost video. I didn't dislike it, but for me, I felt like it was a little bit too long. What was it? The History album? I think that was like 2 albums. Okay, You Are Not Alone, one of my favorite songs. Yes, definitely one of my favorite songs. But in terms of albums, it didn't really do it for me. And then finally, I believe we have Invincible, which was kind of a hot mess in the fact that there was just way too many people involved on the album. It was obviously in the midst of Michael's battle with Sony, and the album didn't get the promotion that the other albums did, and it was just, we only got the one music video, You Rock My World, which was a decent song, but not one of my favorites. Butterflies, highly underrated song. Butterflies, I love Butterflies. But if I had to choose, and this is a difficult one, I don't want to say that my favorite album is a compilation album, because if I were, The Essential Michael Jackson would be my favorite Michael album. I mean, that has all the best songs from like his Jackson days all the way to Invincible. But in terms of me picking one album from Michael's catalog, it would have to be either Thriller or Bad. The Escape album was actually pretty good too. I have to count that, but it wasn't one of my favorites. Between Thriller and Bad, this is a tough one. Oh man, dang, this is tough, guys. I would probably say that Thriller is probably the one I would choose as my favorite Michael album. I'm not saying that's necessarily his best album, but if you were to ask me which one is my favorite, I would probably say Thriller, because when you say Thriller, I feel like there's just so much more associated with that album that I love than Bad. Because when I think Thriller, I think Motown 25, the first Moonwalk, the Thriller music video, the fact that I have the Thriller, Beat It, and Motown 25 jackets in my closet, you know, the music videos themselves. With Bad, and again, Bad 25, that documentary really made me appreciate the album more. There were some cuts on there I really didn't like. I mean, not to say they're bad songs, but what was it? Speed Demon? Nah, not really a fan. What's that song he did with Stevie Wonder, Just Good Friends? Not really my favorite song off there. But I did enjoy pretty much every other song on the album. Keep in mind, I'm talking about the original album, not like the re-releases, the anniversary editions where you have like unreleased songs and demos. I'm talking about the straight, flat-out albums and their original content when they were released in stores. I would say Thriller is my favorite. Not necessarily meaning it is Michael's best album, but definitely the one that I go to the most. But yeah, I definitely cannot wait to do a video talking about my favorite Michael songs, due to the fact that, you know, those songs don't all come from the same album. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. What is your favorite Michael Jackson album? As I said before, Thriller is probably my favorite when I think about it hard enough. Dangerous has my favorite album cover. But let's get the conversation going, because the more likes and comments this video gets, the more likely I'll be able to do these sort of videos in the future. I love talking about music, TV, anime, news. It really kind of adds more diversity to the channel.